Assassin's Promise by Thomas Woodward. Chapter 49. The narrow alley ended in stone steps that continued to curve while rising steeply into the air. The staircase was covered by a heavy arched ceiling that I could barely make out. Reassured, I tentatively pushed my arm outwards to orient myself, but there were no walls. Panicked, I caught my balance. I realized I had no idea how high up I was now, having walked for what seemed like hours. Calculating grimly to myself, I decided to continue on and risk what lay ahead in favor of turning back. I still had no food. I raised my arm, but was unable to touch the covered ceiling that hung above. It must be anchored somehow from above. How could the weight of it just hang there, without any source of support? If only my eyesight could make out more than faint images, I could not trust them. I would need to rely on my sense of balance. The stairs continued steeply upwards. Several times I crouched carefully to rest, staying as close to the center as I could. I could not risk moving more quickly than a slow pace. To lose my footing now would be death. I could feel cold air as I moved higher and higher. Dark, gargantuan shapes seemed just beyond my field of view. It was impossible to tell. Cold wind and the rush of air were my only companions. Hugging my arms tight, I began to wonder if these stairs went on for eternity. If I turned back now, perhaps I could reach the bottom before exhaustion overtook me. Perhaps. My blind curiosity won out over caution, the decision tempered further by my growling stomach. More intense hunger pangs would come later, I knew well. I remembered dim memories of the orphanage, my first real memories. As I climbed, the silence stretched, and I remembered the constant hunger and fear. Other children were harsh and hungry. I recalled the danger that waited for those who turned a blind eye to the other children. None of us had wanted to end up at an orphanage. Children who were bad, or deemed so by the adults, would be taken at random hours and were never heard from again. I remember the screams as one girl was pulled away from her cot, begging profusely not to be taken. There was never enough food. The adults stole extra rations when they thought they would not be caught by the headmaster. My foot stepped onto air. Waving my arms wildly, I staggered before catching myself, adrenaline pumping madly through my system. Pulled sharply out of my reverie, I drew several ragged breaths, sitting there on the precipice of nothing I could see. The air was sharp and cold. I waved my arm over nothing more than open air. Pulling a coin from my pouch, I dropped it over the expanse and heard nothing. 15 heartbeats passed, still no sound. Panic is a strange thing, normally held in check. However, when reality itself appears to stop following the rules of the universe, terror comes boiling over the edge of your mind. Slowly, I looked to my left and right. The stairway continued, jutting off at an odd angle on my left. There had been no warning, no wall to prevent falling off the edge. Recessed in deep shadow, I could barely make out anything beyond the barest hint of steps leading away into the darkness. I moved forward, trusting the path to lead me to the inner city. My mind crafted fanciful images of what I might see when I reached it. Perhaps there would be wondrous plants, water, and fruits. Waterfalls cascading over a multitude of cliffs to join together at the base of the inner city. My body desperately craved this. The allure of food was too strong to keep out of my desire for what I would see.